Study-centric data is just one part of the changes that are happening to Cochrane reviews in 2023. And they're part of, so this change and these other changes to the Cochrane review are part of what's been referred to as the new review format project. And so now we wanted to provide you with some context so you can understand how these changes to data management in RevMan fit into the bigger picture of changes that are happening to Cochrane reviews and their associated data this year. So for this new review format project, there are three main aims. The first is to streamline the development and publication of Cochrane reviews. The second is about improving the experience of people involved in producing and using Cochrane reviews and Cochrane evidence. So that's the authors, editors, peer reviewers, copy editors, and then the users of the evidence. And third, we want to be able to better innovate or more easily innovate in how we share and use our content. And what I want to do is start at that last point. We want to be able to innovate better in how we share and use Cochrane content. And that's really to meet our stakeholder needs and increase the impact of our published content. That's the goal. And so key to this is having the content, obviously. So we need that core Cochrane content, which is trusted and timely synthesized evidence. And what I want to do is emphasize timely here, because our content is already trusted, but it can take a long time to produce. And so there are sort of two core elements that can help make our reviews more timely. So the first is evidence surveillance. So knowing when new evidence is available so that it can be included in a review. And this would really facilitate prospective meta-analyses and improve the efficiency of updates to Cochrane reviews and maintaining living reviews. And there are three pillars that feed into the usefulness and the efficiency of living evidence and evidence surveillance. So the first is enhanced content on the CDSR, which is the Cochrane database of systematic reviews. And things in this area include sort of maximizing the accessibility of our data and thinking about things like interactivity, so particularly around tables. The second is improving the efficiency in producing and sharing Cochrane protocols. And the third is around enhancing the records and data in Central, which is Cochrane's database of trials. And this is particularly important for evidence surveillance. And so for all of this to work as well as it can, we need a really strong foundation. And the two foundational elements are a focused article format. So having more focused reviews with less inconsistency between them. These changes will make things like updating reviews much more straightforward because you're not going to be tied to revisiting the same place in multiple places. The second foundational element is improved data management, which is what we've been hearing about today. So with that more focused, sort of standardized article format, we're pushing structure to where it's needed most, and that's in the data. And managing data at this study level, as you've heard, has lots of benefits for authors, but it also opens up lots of opportunities to increase the impact of your research that's published with Cochrane, thinking about things like data reuse or PICO annotation on the Cochrane library. And so these are the foundations that we are focusing with the new review format project in 2023. We really want to make sure that we invest in getting this right so that all the other layers of this pyramid will work as well as they can. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't things happening at these other levels. So as you may be aware, Cochrane already publishes living reviews. And even recently within the enhanced CDSR content area, we launched a new data package on published reviews that will make it easier to reuse Cochrane evidence. And we're making sure as we're doing these foundational level developments that they really align with the other levels of the pyramid. And then in 2024, we can really build on what we've built in that foundation and unlock the potential of our evidence at all these different levels of the pyramid. So what are the actual changes to these kind of foundational levels? So with improved data management, you've been hearing a lot about what these are. They were all released as part of the full move to RevMan Web. So study-centric data has become default for all authors with new reviews, and authors can now import all of their extracted data. As well as importing the data, authors can also export their data from RevMan. So they can now export all of the study characteristics, the analyses data, the risk of bias judgments, and the references. And this is so they can reuse this data in other statistical tools. And they can also reuse that data, the study data, from one Cochrane review to another. And as we've mentioned, on a published review, a reader can now download a full data package associated with the review that will facilitate reuse. And so this also includes the included study data, the risk of bias assessments, all the analyses data, and the references. And then if we move on to the article format, our plans are to have a more standardized review, so more similar to what you would see in other journals that are better defined and better focused. And our aim is for the review to have really clear review criteria itself, as well as really clear criteria for each of the comparisons within the review. Excuse me. This should result in reviews with maybe fewer comparisons, but also better justified comparisons, and they're comparisons that are focusing on the main outcomes. The setup of study-centric data will help here, as you've seen, that kind of defining the review PICO and the synthesis PICO early on at the protocol stage within the system is going to help with that focusing of the reviews. But we're also going to be working on having templates that are embedded within RevMan and that would be available to authors to help guide them of what to report where. We'll also be introducing a clearer distinction between the main article of the review and what's supplementary materials. And so content that will be moving to supplementary materials include the search strategy, all of the characteristics of included studies tables, any risk of bias tables, a full analyses package that includes all of the comparisons and all of the forest plots for the review, and then this full downloadable data package. As well as this, there will be changes to how the reference list within the main article, the main review article, is structured. So there'll be one single flat reference list, as is standard with other journals, but that grouping of references that you're familiar with now is not going to be lost. That will be included in the relevant supplementary material. So for example, the supplementary material that includes the characteristics of included studies will have all of the references for the included studies, and it will have the references grouped by study. And then there will be some other changes that will help enhance the CDSR content. So some new tables. So for example, a summary of analyses and included studies table. So there's been a lot of previous work relating to the review format with different Cochrane groups across the community developing recommendations over the years, and they've really informed the work that we're doing. In 2021, 2022, the Cochrane group based in Cologne in Germany really set the groundwork to inform this project with a research project that included virtual interviews and surveys that were completed by nearly 1,000 respondents from across the Cochrane community. And we received those recommendations from the Cologne team in July last year, and then we really started the project in earnest. And we've completed a few rounds of consultation with different Cochrane teams on the implementation plans, and that was really to understand what we wanted to achieve with the work in 2023, and then finesse the plans to make sure that they were ambitious but realistic. We've also had different proposals, different decisions as part of the project, discussed and informed by Cochrane's editorial board, Cochrane's methods executive, and other key stakeholders. So, for example, the handbook reporting chapter authors and editors. As well as this, we've recruited a volunteer base through Cochrane's Engage platform. So we have more than 50 people with different stakeholder perspectives within that volunteer base. So authors, editors, guideline developers, consumers, researchers, etc. And they have provided feedback on our plans. So from this volunteer base, we completed user experience testing, where we shared what we wanted to, what we planned to change within the Cochrane Library, within RevMan, and with Editorial Manager, to make sure that the options we go with for launch are the most sensible from the perspective of the person that will be using that platform. And there'll also be a few more opportunities for this volunteer group to be involved. We'll have, excuse me, some focus groups on some key areas for developing the guidance for focusing Cochrane reviews, and some other opportunities for feedback on the guidance that we produce. And so last month in April 2023, that was a core milestone for the project, which was when study-centric data became default for all new Cochrane reviews, and authors with ongoing protocols and reviews can now switch it on themselves if they like. Our next big milestone will be in August, which is when we'll be announcing the changes to the more focused article format. And so at this point, it will become optional for authors to switch to the new format. And what we want to do is, after a certain amount of time, so for example, 6 months, have at that time when it's optional for submissions to Cochrane, and then that will allow anyone who's currently working in the old format to submit their review in the old format and not have to make any changes. But then, as I mentioned, after that that set time, it will then become a requirement for submissions to include the new format. And the idea is this whole project is going to be iterative, so it doesn't finish in 2023. We'll be making developments based on user feedback from these kind of launches and milestones, as we take a kind of agile approach to the developments. And we have had a lot of other great ideas from previous work on the review format, as well as ideas that have come up through our research and our user testing. So towards the end of this year, once we've completed these 2 milestones, we will be reassessing what we've achieved and thinking about what we want to prioritize in 2024. And so I just want to, quickly mention what it means, what these changes mean for the different kind of stakeholders and people involved in producing Cochrane reviews, because, as we mentioned on that first slide about what the aims were for the new review format project, these are the core groups of people who are going to benefit. And so for authors, the changes will make Cochrane a more attractive publishing option. Will decrease the time it takes to produce reviews and help increase the impact of the research. For editors, peer reviewers and copy editors, we will be improving their experience and decreasing the time that it takes to complete the tasks. And then for readers and users, these changes are all about improving the readability and accessibility of Cochrane reviews and the associated data on the Cochrane Library. And so I just want to mention some key resources for you. These are key resources related to the study-centric data changes. In August, we will be sharing resources for the focused article format. So watch this space, there will be webinars around that time. But coming back to study-centric data, your kind of one-stop shop is a portal on the Cochrane training website. We also have the RevMan knowledge base, which includes YouTube tutorials, which is really where your kind of how-to step-by-step guides are for using study-centric data in RevMan. And we'll also be sharing news items, updating FAQs and doing other social promotion as changes happen and new developments are released. And if you have any questions at any point, you can always contact support@cochrane.org. In terms of the training, so again, relating to study-centric data, this is the announcement webinar. So we also repeated it yesterday for the other time zones. And the next webinar in the series will be a more practical webinar that will go into more detail about the methodological underpinning for these changes, and will also include a showcase of sort of how to use study-centric data in RevMan. So that's on the 24th and the 25th of May. So please do sign up. I'm sure there's a link going in the chat. And we'll also be working on other resources for trainers. We've had some workshops accepted at the colloquium, and we'll be updating Cochrane's interactive learning. It's also worth mentioning that Covidence have a webinar coming up on exporting your extracted data from Covidence and then importing it into RevMan. So if you're interested in that, that's on the 25th of May.